Thank you for calling. Enter your 6-digit PIN number. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the call-in studio web interface.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a lunchtime edition of Tunnel Vision. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by Ryan Abraham and Shotgun Spratling. We have a fun show for you today, and that's mostly because football is back. Dun, 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 dun.
Football's back.
I knew the voice would come, Ryan.
Yes, football is back. Week 0, you're out of here. Week 1 is now. Starts tonight.
Yeah, that's partially why we're doing a lunch hour today. Shotgun has some high school games covered. Ryan and I have some college games to watch. So
Yes.
we're
Mostly
coming to
just Ryan wanted to watch games because Arizona State plays tonight.
Yeah.
BYU plays tonight.
Utah.
UCLA plays tonight.
Utah, BYU, and Utah. That's a doubleheader.
Yeah, 3 USC opponents play tonight. Well, 4, right? No,
Four.
yeah, 4
Yeah.
USC opponents play tonight. Crazy.
Pretty crazy, yes. So we'll be talking about that. Football's back. Of course, USC season opener against Fresno State on Saturday. We'll talk about that, preview that, maybe even get some predictions. The return of predictions. Dun, dun, dun,
Okay.
dun. And then, of course, we'll talk about the news items. Jack Sears entered the transfer portal on Tuesday. We'll get these guys' reactions to that. Of course, you can call us live on Tunnel Vision 5124-TUNNEL. You can ask us your questions, and we'll answer them here live on the show. You can also tweet at us, #TunnelVision, and we'll put it on the show. And like usual, whatever platform you're watching this on, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, have your comments, questions, concerns. We'll answer them, put them on the screen, all that good stuff. We like interacting with you guys, so thanks for watching. But guys, like I said, it is game week. Are you excited for a final game? The tangibles will return where we will actually have like evidence to back up what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean, a real game, like a football game, not a scrimmage, not spring football practice or whatever. We could actually talk about, the Trojans went out and this is what they did. It wasn't, were they in half pads? It wasn't any that kind of talk. It's really just going out.
Wait, they're going to play in full pads?
They'll play in full pads.
Sure?
That's the rumor. So we're working on that. Yes, so it's going to be an actual football game. So much. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, since 1996. We've had the podcast for 12 years. It's hard to remember an off season with this much weird stuff going on. Even after like the last 5 and 7 season, Hackett was fired, so at least you were like looking forward to a new coach. This was a 5 and 7 season where you retained the coach. And that meant the whole entire offseason was all speculation about how many games is it going to take for him to get fired? What's going to happen here? There was just so much of that, and I'm so glad that it's going to be over and we can talk about football.
Yes.
I mean, this week you go to practice, and usually the lead up to, when you're talking to players and the coaches is, what are you expecting from the, first week opponent? I didn't want to ask any questions. I was like, can we just get to games so we can talk about what's actually happening on the field? Because I feel like we went over everything ad nauseum.
Yes.
This offseason, because there has been so much talk and speculation and, argument, actually, more than anything else, I think, this offseason. So we finally get to see the USC team back on the field and see what they can do against a good Fresno State team, a team that's coming off, double-digit wins. Jeff Tedford, familiar face on the opposite sideline, not at Cal anymore, but at Fresno State, he has a good little bond with Clancy Pendergast,
Yeah.
so that matchup should be kind of fun. So we'll see how those two guys go at each other. But just finally we get to see some action on the field instead of just speculating and guessing and hoping and wishing and all the other things that USC fans are doing this offseason.
Now, I don't want to say there's not going to be speculation after the game, because there's definitely going to be it, but at least there'll be some basis of what you have seen and not just like, well, what happens if this? So if USC wins by like just a touchdown, there's still going to be people like, oh, this is terrible. The world. Obviously, if USC loses, it is the end of the world. And then if USC wins by like 14 or 21, well, Fresno State was terrible, blah, blah, blah. So there'll be lots of that, but at least they'll be based on there was an actual game that people get to see.
And we get to see what the offense looks like. I mean, that's been the big question. I mean, besides the Helton talk, the big question has actually been, well, what will this offense do?
Yeah.
Now we'll actually get to get an actual tangible representation against a defense that's not seeing the same thing every. I mean, that's been the when they didn't run the ball well, it's kind of what the offensive lineman kind of says, like, well, when you play the same team, same defense for 3 weeks straight and you have a simple playbook, they're going to kind of know what the running plays are.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they do against a team in another colored jersey.
One thing that real quick, I know Keely wants to jump to the next thing. I
all
believe,
good.
if I'm not
All
mistaken, now I've like my partner on the Podcast of Champions likes to say, he has the memory of a goldfish. I think I'm right up there with him. Mine's maybe a little more selective. But if Sark's first year was going to be a new offense and everything, the opener, I believe, was against Fresno State.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that offseason was they're going to run a crap ton of plays. It was going to be over 100 plays, and they did that against Fresno State. So the new offense was like exactly what they said it was going to be against Fresno State. The next week, I think against Stanford, they ran like 57 plays or something, if I remember correctly. So it was not. So I don't know. We'll read something into this game, but I don't know if we'll know for sure because it's going to be like the same. I believe it's the same two opponents, right? It's Fresno State followed by Stanford. So
yeah, Gerald Bowman had an interception in that game.
Oh,
That's
really?
what
Yeah.
I remember.
Fun fact, that was the last football game I've ever watched from the stadium. Like a stadium seat. The rest I've always covered.
that was a student. So you were a student.
I
then.
was a student.
Nice.
It was my last
I'm glad I
game.
remembered that correctly and did not screw that up.
Yeah,
Poorly.
well done. But as far as expectations for this offense, I know Fresno State's defense is not exactly the same defense that they had in 2018, but what would be considered a successful showing for USC's offense against this Fresno State defense?
Yeah, well, Graham Harrell wants to score 50 points, right? But
55.
just if you want to listen to, I did a good preview podcast on the Peristyle Podcast Network with Jackson Moore, the longtime publisher of the Bark Board. I've worked with him. I actually used to publish that site back in the day, and he actually worked for me for a while. But he does a great job. And he's saying like they lose all their linebackers from last year. They don't lose as many starters on defense as they do on offense. But that was the big surprise. Jeff Tedford comes in. He's an offensive guru. Their defense was great. They actually led the nation in like keeping opponents under 30 points last year. And he feels like the linebacker core, even though they lost them all, they're more athletic. They move some guys around. They're probably going to be better. He thinks the defense is going to be similar to what it was last year. So I think it is going to be a real test. But USC's receivers are so good. I just feel like this is going to be USC needs to score 35-plus points in this game. I think if they do that, 35, 38, 42, something like that, I feel it's going to be a success. If you're in the 20s or something, for this kind of offense against that opponent, I don't think you're going to be, I don't think that's the right call. From what we've seen this offseason, they should be able to go up in the high 30s or low 40s.
So the last line I looked at was USC was a 13.5-point favorite when they predicted basically the score would be 33-20. So that would be right in line with where you were at. I think they can, if the offense gets going, if the offensive line plays decent, they'll put up 40 points.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a question. They can score. I mean, this offense, the receivers are really good. The running backs are good. Can they just do something up front?
Yeah.
Or is JT Daniels going to be running for his life? And then people are going, well, why don't we use a mobile quarterback? And then you got a whole nother controversy coming back up.
Oh, boy. Vice versa, what are you expecting from this defense? Like you said, Ryan, they return less starters on offense. Fresno State does. What are you expecting as far as what we'll see from this defense?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. We talked to Clancy Pendergast yesterday. I put up a video on USCFootball.com. He's very familiar with Jeff Tedford because he was the defensive coordinator for Cal from 2010 to 2012. Jeff Tedford's last 3 years there, actually 2 of them were losing seasons, so it wasn't the greatest run at the end of it. But Tedford did leave Cal as the winningest coach in program history. He did a lot of good things there. And Clancy knows it pretty well. He says, he changes his up every year. He's changing his schemes, doing a lot of different things. They're going to have a new offensive coordinator, but they kind of had like a tandem of offensive coordinators, and one of them left, and they have the other one back. So I think you're going to see a lot of similar stuff than what you saw last year, but he says he utilizes his personnel very well. They lose 8 senior wide receivers from last year. Marcus McMaryion, the transfer from Oregon State, was a great dynamic quarterback for them. Jorge Reyna, though, comes in, and he comes in, and he actually was considered, they were considering him to be, he was the first recruit for Jeff Tedford. They were considering him to be the starting quarterback 2 years ago when McMaryion took over. He had an injury, so that kind of took him out of the running, and McMaryion did well. But he was actually in there, so I think they feel pretty confident that he's going to be able to be a good signal caller for them. They got a couple receivers back. They moved some guys around. It's a younger group, an athletic group. They've lost some running backs to injuries, but they still got a couple back that they really like. They would have liked to use like a 4-man rotation. It's probably going to be more like a 2-man rotation. They got a stud tight end. Some change on the offensive line too. So there's definitely going to be some turnover, but scheme-wise, I think it's going to be similar, and I think they'll probably look a lot better when the regular season gets going. It's just going to be hard to tell how good they look in this opener against USC.
Yeah.
The thing is, anytime you're replacing that many people in an opener, you're going to have some issues there.
Yeah.
There's going to be some mistakes and stuff just because guys don't have experience. You saw that, last year when you throw in first-time quarterbacks, multiple times there, that early in that first game, there's some mistakes. You got to get in the groove type of thing. So USC needs to take advantage of those, especially on the defensive side. Now, USC, you can see those same type of mistakes in the secondary because USC has barely any experience in the secondary. The most anyone has, I think, is like 3 or 4 games back there as a starter at least. So they've got their own issues on the defensive side, but that front seven, you expect them to be kind of the rock and kind of hold them. And that's kind of what Clancy was talking about yesterday. He's got a lot of trust in that front seven. And, if those guys can go to work up front and get some pressure on the quarterback, that alleviates a lot of the pressure on the DBs as well. So we'll see if all that kind of plays out that way. If you got a first-time quarterback, if you can get pressure on him, that's usually what you want to do. There's very few quarterbacks that excel under pressure for the first time.
Yeah.
So if you get them and put them in that situation and make them learn, it's similar to what Jack Sears you saw last year in the Arizona State game. He was kind of running for his life the first quarter and a half. And then he started to calm down and then thinks, but if you can do that for a quarter and a half, that gives you a huge advantage to the game. So if USC can get some pressure on Reyna early in the game, I think that would be really big for him.
Yeah.
Sean on Facebook kind of put this simply. He says, will USC's better athletes win or Fresno State's better coach win?
The job Tedford's done, you can't understate it. There's no FBS program in history that ever lost double-digit games and then won double-digit games the next 2 years. So that's what Fresno State did. They were 1-11. He took over in 1 year. They won 10, then went 12-2 the following year and won the Mountain West. Beat 2 Pac-12 schools, UCLA and Arizona State, both of which beat USC last year. So I would not say you don't understand. You can't you can't underestimate what Fresno State's going to do. But I feel like USC's made enough scheme changes. I think the athletes are going to be better. They've made some changes on the coaching staff to make that better. I feel like it's going to be USC's game, and they could even cover the spread. But so you can't overlook this Fresno State team just because they lost so many players from last year.
Yeah. We actually have a live caller.
Already? Nice.
Yes. They actually called in like a minute after we started the show. So
Sweet.
Thanks for hanging on there. I believe it is Derek who is calling in. Hello, Derek. You're live on television.
Yeah, this is Derek from Fontana.
Hi.
What's up, Derek?
My question is about Clancy Pendergast's defense. They gave up 37 points to Texas, 36 points to Washington State, 41 points to Utah, 38 points to Arizona State, and 34 points to UCLA. Is there any reason why they would be better this year with the same players and an inexperienced secondary?
Good question.
Derek, you're living in the past. That's all last year. That was last year's stuff. This is a new, simpler defense.
Ryan.
It's supposed to be simpler.
That is what we've been told.
Yes. No, I think we talking to him yesterday. I think the front seven they feel really good about, even losing some of the leadership that they have. There's going to be more rotation in the front four. It doesn't seem like when we talked to him yesterday, he pretty much offered up. Like in the back seven, he doesn't really like to rotate as much because you don't want to have a nickelback coming in and out and then maybe missing an assignment and giving up a big play. But yeah, I feel like the players seem to feel like they're playing faster. They've adapted to this, simpler scheme and stuff. They've cut the playbook in half or whatever, a little bit better. So yeah, I feel like there's the potential for it to get better. I think definitely stopping the run will be better. Maybe there's going to be some big plays in the passing game, but I feel like it's going to be a better defense. I don't know.
One big thing of all those games you listed, only one of those did USC's offense do anything, and that was the Washington State game that they won. And that's kind of like always a matchup, Clancy and Mike Leach, and I don't think that Clancy excels in that matchup, but it's fun to watch. It's a chess game between those two guys because they're constantly moving pieces around. But the other games, USC's offense was pretty much terrible for long stretches. And I think that wore the defense out. I think it hurt their mentality as the season progressed because you feel like, hey, we got to stop. Okay, 3 minutes later, 3 minutes actual time, you're back out there on the field. You're like, I thought we just got to stop. Okay, we need you to get another one. You get another one, it's like 3 minutes later, you're back. And it just was so repetitive that I think it hurt their confidence because you get a couple stops, you think, okay, now we're going to score, we'll get a break. No, you need to get back right out there.
Yeah.
So I think that they're going to be assisted by the offense being able to move the ball a little bit more consistently. And I think consistency has been a word that's been thrown around in the quarterback competition a lot. I know some people have been upset about that being one of the words that was used to describe JT Daniels, but that's something this offense needed.
Yeah.
Last year it was big play and bust, big play and bust. And regardless of which one of those won out, the defense was right back on the field every single time.
Yeah.
Even when they got the big plays and they scored, it was, okay, well, how long was that drive? 1 minute and 42 seconds. So, okay, can you get back out there and stop somebody? I think if they're moving the ball like they did in the fall showcase when JT was in there were longer drives. They're going to
Picking
go
up first downs, moving the chains.
Yeah.
They're going to go with tempo. Yeah. They're going to go with tempo and try to be quick like that, but they should be able to move the ball a little bit more consistently. And even if the offense isn't, getting a touchdown every time, at least they're going to pick up some first downs, whereas last year it just seemed like there'd be stretches of quarter or 2 quarters long where there's 1 or 2 first downs the entire time. And you're like, how are you expecting the defense to be at their best when they're being asked to do everything, basically?
Yeah. And then if the offense doesn't pick up a first down, you got Ben Griffiths now. So, boom.
True.
I'm seriously, that's going to help.
No,
the
yeah.
offense and him and
Longer
Ben
field
should help the defense tremendously because they won't be starting at midfield all the time like they were last year.
Yeah, and Cam Smith said as much about how when you don't have an offense that is constantly producing, it really wears on the defense. And as far as the Clancy Pendergast simple scheme thing, I am cautious about it just because I feel like we've heard that over the last 3 seasons. But I did talk to EA Pallier Naoteote yesterday, and he was saying his freshman year, it just felt like he was overwhelmed trying to get the playbook down. He was like, Clancy is smart. He's an NFL coordinator, but it's almost too much. And so I was trying to be a freshman playing, which is hard enough, but also trying to get the playbook down. And that was just a little bit too much. And he said, I just feel like I can play so much faster because I'm not thinking about things as much this time around. And granted, that helps that he has a year under his belt, but I think that helps as well. And we've heard as much from Christian Rector as well. So
yeah,
I'm hesitant just because I feel like we've heard it a lot, but there is simpleness to Clancy's defense.
Derek, the season starts in 2 days. Be a little optimistic. Come on, we got
Ryan,
this. I'm trying to be the optimist here.
It's a good
I'm
question.
usually really snarky. I'm trying to be optimistic.
In a similar exact vein to what you said about Pallier, his little brother Ma'a at St. John Bosco got there late in the season, so Chris and I went and saw his opener, and the same exact thing was said about him from Jason Negro, their head coach, who said, he's kind of reading and reacting right now instead of just going. It's taking him a little bit of time. And he's going to progress. He's going to get better and better. And that's what happens when you get more familiarity with the defense and everything. Once you know exactly what you're doing, then it becomes second nature. You don't have to think first and then go do your job. It's just you react to it and you know what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah, we
right out of the chute.
Yeah, we have more calls now. Boss man, do you want to take them?
Yeah, why not? Let's take them.
Okay, we
wanted to try to do a hard out at 1 or something. So let's rattle questions off. You don't need to hear us speak. Do we have anything else that we had to talk about?
Well, I just took a live caller. Hello, you're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, I'm a USC fan, and I think the Trojans will dominate Fresno State. I think it'll be a runaway. I don't think it'll be close.
Interesting.
There you go, Mark. I like that.
Based on what, Mark?
Oh, Keely's going to come out.
Offense, and I think they'll score on offense and defense. The defense will be better this year in offense.
Well, there you go.
Nice, Mark.
That's my opinion.
Thanks, Mark, for the call.
I think
And
Mark,
I think Daniels will be good. I think Daniels will be better this year than last year, but I think SC will take it.
Yeah. Good points, Mark. I really feel from what they did in the offseason, it should be better. There should be a lot of the screw-ups from last year should be gone. Are all of them going to be gone?
They addressed things that they were doing wrong.
Right.
Which is a positive.
They didn't have a meeting about it. They actually did something about it.
Bring the
penalties should be better.
Bringing the officials in to work on the penalties. They worked incessantly on the turnover stuff in the spring in particular. Got a question for you, Ryan. Since he brought up he thinks the defense will score. Trivia question here.
Oh.
How many points did the defense score last year?
12 or 18. I'll go 18.
12 points.
Dang.
Oh, you should let me answer, Shotgun.
You already had the question. So, Ajene Harris had the pick 6 against Colorado at the goal line, and Jay Tufele's,
I was
big
thinking
man
there might have been
scoop
one
scorer. So, if you can improve on that, I think kind of 4 touchdowns for a defense is, I would say, is probably average, or expected.
Really, that's
kinda,
average. Okay.
I would kind of think that, like four games over 12, like 1 every 3 games, you get a defensive score. That's not too much to ask.
Sure,
I don't
okay.
think. So if you double the points there, I think that helps the offense out. Mason brought up a point when we were talking about previously about the defense giving up all the points. He said, well, in that Texas game, they didn't score all the points. Because remember, you had the blocked field goal.
Yeah.
The defense had almost got the safety, which should have been a safety, and kind of swung things. And let's see if this USC defense, if something like that happens, or this USC team as a whole, if they're mentally tough enough to overcome the safety that was not called. Because I had multiple players that told me that they were deflated after that. They didn't get that call, and they just felt like everything was going against them, and then everything did go against them.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if they're mentally tough enough to do it. The things they can correct, they've done a good job of correcting. We'll see if the physicality and toughness and those things that aren't things you can just point a magic wand at, if those are there, the mental toughness, the physicality in the trenches, those are things that you weren't really addressed on the practice field. Those are things you got to see on the field. See in a game to see if they have fixed it.
Yeah, lifting heavy, eating thick, does that pay dividends? All that stuff. Like, all those things, there's so many good things in the offseason. Then you got to see it translate to the field. And like you said, sometimes you get adversity. Everything's going great, and you get punched in the mouth. And it's like, do you collapse to the canvas, or do you just take it? You get it on the chin, and then you come right back. So we'll see if this team's got that kind of fortitude.
It's a big question,
yeah.
for sure. Let's go to one more caller before we get into questions. We have a lot of questions, so thank you guys for that. I believe we have Luke on the line. Hello, Luke. You're live on Tunnel Vision.
Hello. I have a question. Is there any defensive player that is looking like a leader so far for this upcoming year?
Thanks, Luke. That was like my favorite name growing up because I liked the Dukes of Hazzard, Bo and Luke, and then I also liked Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. So those are my favorite names.
Well,
These are the things you find out on Tunnel Vision.
People don't just want to get football all the time. You want to get a little, brevity. Okay. I think Talanoa Hufanga, that's not the right word at all.
Levity.
Okay. Let's do that one. It's been a long day. I was already worked out this morning.
12 p.m.
Answer the question. Let's go.
Talanoa Hufanga, I think he's going to be a leader. I think Christian Rector is going to be a leader. And I'm probably going to go with John Houston being a leader, too. There's a couple of captain potential in that group of guys.
So Brian just asked this question on YouTube as well. Who are the team captains? We have not heard the team captains yet.
No.
Maybe today would be it, since it'll be the last media availability before the first game, or we'll just find out when they walk out the tunnel.
Yeah, according to Chris Trevino in the other room, he said today for sure, I think, right?
Did not say for sure.
He didn't say for
He's
sure.
reporting that.
I think we all
He
assumed
really
it'll
wanted to be
today.
sitting here.
He just poked his head in to argue that point.
Yeah. They're going to do a podcast after this, so that'll be up on Friday if you guys want to check that out. But Chris, Keely, and Shotgun, so that should be fun.
So I think we'll get this question, and people are asking about captains, but your captain predictions, mine are Pittman, Austin Jackson, John Houston, and Christian Rector. I think those are pretty solid 4 right there. If you go to you do a special teams one, Chase McGrath.
Ooh, Chase McGrath could be good.
A lot of schools are going to a special teams captain. Like Arizona State had a true freshman as a team captain because they have a special teams captain now.
Oh,
I
interesting.
thought it was interesting.
Interesting.
I think the dark horse is JT Daniels because he's already been named the starter, so he could potentially be a captain. Maybe over Austin Jackson. I think Pittman's probably going to be there.
Over Austin Jackson?
Not over Austin
Then over
Jackson.
who?
You have 5. They've had 5 before.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not over Austin Jackson. I mean, what he did in the offseason for his sister, like that immediately gains you respect. And he's been a vocal leader. That was his job. That was his goal this offseason was to be that vocal. There's no way he's not a captain.
Yeah. My guess would be.
I would be shocked if that would be the case.
As far as captains, I would say John Houston, Christian Rector, Austin Jackson.
Michael Pittman?
Pittman, probably,
Thanks for just repeating what I said.
Yes, but my question is maybe JT. I don't know where he lies on that. But
That's what I said.
As far as our caller's question about defense, We talked to Christian Rector yesterday, and he actually it was interesting how introspective he was about last season and his role on the team. And he said he felt bad that he couldn't be more of a leader because he feels like he's become more of a leader. And we've heard that from other defensive guys. I talked to Marlon Tuipulotu, and he was like, it's crazy just how much he's grown as a leader and how much he's really leading that room. And so the fact that he feels bad that he wasn't able to lead I think is interesting because I don't think people really look to him. I think they look more to Biggie or Cam, and the fact that he holds that responsibility is interesting.
Well, he was in the same group as Porter Gustin, those outside linebackers, that defense lineman. And I would just assume because Porter Gustin is a mountain man and there are not many mountain men on this team, that it's a completely different kind of personality. So maybe he felt like it wasn't his place to step in, with Porter Gustin being in that same room, the same groups. So that might have had something to do with it. So it's kind of hard, when you're in a situation when there's an older guy like that, and not to say that Porter Gustin was not doing his leadership job or whatever, but when you feel like you need to say something and you don't want to create any kind of rift or anything that way. So that can be an interesting dynamic in a team locker room. In the ideal setting, anyone can say anything at any time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But when you're going 5-7, it's not an ideal setting.
Yeah.
Alrighty, thanks for the call. Before we get into questions, I just want a quick take about Jack Sears entering the transfer portal.
Okay.
He released a statement on Tuesday. Shotgun, we never got your thoughts on Jack Sears in general, just because you were out last week for tunnel vision. So what are your thoughts on the situation?
So when you get named quarterback number 4, obviously I can see why he did it. Now, here's why I think he shouldn't have done it, though. I understand going in, unless he's going to transfer during the semester, if he can find a suitor this first, before the season really gets going, then go for it. And you can practice with a team for the entire year, then that's great. You can do that. But if you're going to stick around till December, and, I think he's already walked and graduated. That's the whole question I have is, has he graduated yet or not?
He's graduating in December.
Yeah.
So if he's graduating in December, he knows he's going to stay this semester, why would you not stay on the team?
Well, from the statement, it sounded like he wanted to give himself the best chance. So he could stay on the team.
What changes?
Well, he gets to go out
time.
and explore, look at other programs. He can go take visits and things like that, and he's not worried about running the scout team for USC.
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't want to spend all his time to get 10 reps of practice. That's understandable that he doesn't want to do that.
But what happens when there's a spate of injuries? I mean, last year, Holden Thomas was injured for half the season. Then you had JT and Matt Fink go down in the same game, and he comes in. Now, what if he was, in this situation, the 4th guy and the 3 guys in front? You have a Maryland situation. They lost 6 quarterbacks in one season at one point.
Yeah.
Are you now feeling like, oh, I should have been out there? Because now I have an opportunity. Because I just don't see the big advantage to not participating. Because if you're going to leave at the end of the semester, why would you not try to get reps and go against a good defense instead of, okay, well, I worked with a quarterback coach. And if his class load is that difficult that he needs to finish, then I understand. I think that would be kind of if he's taking 18 or 20 hours or something, and to be able to graduate so he can leave. But otherwise, it's what does it matter if you're going to the transfer portal now versus at the end of the season? Do you really need to go on those visits again? How many different schools do you need that you can't go on in the December break or whatever it may be? I just think you could do all those things still and still be on the team in case you're needed. Now, he did say in the statement, hey, that if they need me, I'll be there, which makes me wonder if he was like, hey, I think about this, and they're like, yeah, well, just get out of here. Just get out of this locker room.
It could be that. But I think for him, I think it's more about.
Given Clay's track record, I don't think so.
Yeah, Clay seems to be pretty accommodating.
Look at Brew and Chris Steele. That doesn't seem like the case.
But I think it's a thing where he's 4th string. So there's no real reason to. I wouldn't want to stick around and be 4th string.
Yeah.
But if JT Daniels gets hurt and now he's 3rd string, he comes back to practice and tries to compete at some point. Maybe that's. Would he, if something like that happens and he had practiced the whole time, would he have a better chance? I don't know, but you're not likely to lose 3 quarterbacks in one game. But if you lose 1 or 2, then he could bring them back. And
I just don't. The same thing with Haener at Washington. I don't see the big advantage for the player of leaving unless you can be enrolled and start practicing with your new team and learn the new offense and do those things. If you're still going to be at the school, like in Jack Sears' case, to finish so he can graduate and be eligible immediately, I don't see the big advantage of not being out there with the team. And I think he'll miss it. Miss being around the guys and those type things. And those are the things that are hard to kind of judge. But you can't blame him for wanting to transfer, though. That is the other thing I will point out. If you're 4th string, it's very the chances of you getting in and then becoming the starter are very rare. So I think he has done that's the right move, is to go look for another opportunity if he thinks that he's a starting quarterback and thinks that he can potentially have an NFL career.
Yep. All right, let's go. It's 12:30, so we have a good amount of time for some questions.
Yes.
Let's go into our first one from Ernesto. He says, how much of an impact will Stephen Carr have in this game and for the rest of the season?
I kind of feel he's going to have a big impact in this one. That's just a gut feeling. I think they're going to see him catching some swing passes. I think he's going to get the majority of the carries. Just a gut feeling, not because we can't really watch practice now and tell you what's been going on. But I do feel he's going to have a big part in this. I think he's going to make some guys miss, and he'll be in this air raid. I think he's going to shine. So that's my gut feeling. I know thinks he's going to win the Heisman this year. But I feel like he's going to be a big part of it.
Never said he would win the Heisman. I said he would be a Heisman finalist
Right.
by his junior year.
No, okay. Sure.
Which is this
That's
year.
what I said
Sure.
before he got to
Debatable.
USC.
I'm going to go back into the records.
Okay.
But sure.
Do you feel like he's going to have a big part of this offense?
I think if he shows that the burst is truly back, as Clay Helton said, and what we've kind of been waiting for. Now, we saw a couple of times in the fall, where in camp where he made guys miss, and it was like, keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. It might be back. And so that's one of the things I'll be watching. I'm very curious to see, and I hope that he gets, that he's 100% healthy and back to where he was, because you want to see guys succeed, especially a guy like Stephen Carr that, I've covered for, 6-7 years now, it feels like, coming through the camps and 7-on-7 circuits and stuff. So you want to see those guys succeed and have the best opportunity at 100%. So we'll see if he's back. I think they're going to use all three of those main running backs. We may even see Keenan Kristen.
You might, yeah.
Depending on the score and how the game kind of plays out, but I think all three of the other guys will get in there and be kind of rotating consistently. I would guess. I think they're going to rotate guys in and out a little bit more on that offensive side. They're going to run 3 or 4 plays, and if they're moving the chains a little bit, then they'll bring in a whole group of new skill position players and then go from there and try to keep the pressure on the defense.
Yeah.
You kind of already touched on it, but how do you expect this running game to go? Do you expect guys to have one long drive? Well, how has Mike Jinks kind of talked about how he expects things to go?
What do you think?
I haven't talked to Jinx since the spring.
I haven't talked to him in a while. None of us have. I just don't think we're going to know. And the whole running game in general, we didn't see much of it. I think we have a pretty good idea what the passing game is going to be. The running game is sort of like it's going to be like this audition on Saturday, because even in the fall showcase, they ran the ball 17 times and threw it 66. That's kind of what practice has been like. We've seen a lot more of the passing game than the run game.
And is that the case because they trust that wide receiver group more than the running backs? That might be part of it. You always want your coaches to meld their offense, defense, team around their players. Use your players to their best abilities. So that might be part of the case. You might see USC, instead of the 52-48 that Graham Harrell had at North Texas, you might see them throw a lot more this year, because that receiver core is dynamic and deep. It's a double D wide receiver group. So, I would use them a lot.
Yeah.
And even some of their throws that are to the wide receivers or to the running backs are extensions of the run game. The screen passes, the tunnel screens, you're going to see some different things like that, swing passes that are designed to get the ball to get somebody immediately and then try to get up the field, whether it's between the tackles or outside the tackles. How much does that really matter? That's all part of your running game.
Yeah, and all the practices we saw were while 4 quarterbacks were competing, so they had to throw the ball a lot too. So when they close practices, maybe they're running the ball a lot more than they did when they were showing us.
Sure. Oh.
But who knows?
We have a Facebook question from Steve. He says, I have concerns on the reliability of both the O-line and D-back shotgun. Are they the weakest links of this team?
Definitely. I think the offensive line is the key to the entire season. If they can perform and give JT Daniels time and open up some running lanes when you get down in the red zone in particular, then this offense can score 40, 50 points a game. I don't think it's out of the question, because their receiver group is so good, and I think JT Daniels is going to show a lot more this second season than his first season. And then on the other side, if you give up big plays, you're in trouble. But if you can stop the run, that helps those DBs so much more. Yeah. So if you can stop the run, get a little pressure, and that front 7 could be able to do that. So if they can help them out up front, I think that alleviates a little bit of the pressure on the back 4 or 5 guys. And I think that there's talent back there.
There is.
So, but there's question marks because of inexperience. But the bigger question marks, obviously, on the offensive line to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions there.
Agreed.
Real quick on Periscope.
Yes.
Banshee first said, Ryan, have you tried the frozen mac and cheese at Trader Joe's? It's the bomb. I have not. I want to try that. Thank you. And then he also said, any indication the game management will improve? Example, 11 or 12 players being on the field. That was mostly special teams, I believe.
There was once on defense when they had 10 players.
There once on defense. So,
and on offense, if you have 10 players, you have time to wait and run somebody out.
yeah, you can do all that stuff. But
no one's trying to rush them.
I think that's going to be hard to tell until we see games. Did we see one? Was there one
The
play?
fall showcase, we saw it happen twice on special teams.
They did not have 10 guys in the field. They had 10 guys initially, and they ran somebody out late, which is partly just when you get into a true game situation, you're trying to iron those things out 2 weeks before, and that's what those scrimmages are supposed to be for.
True.
That's what the closed scrimmage is supposed to be for. You go through those situations, you go through substitutions. They even kind of touched on that. I don't think anybody really picked up on it, but that's something you do in those scrimmages to make sure you got it. When you're coming off, are you tapping your helmet? Are you making some other motion to know that you're the next guy needs to come in? Those type of things have to be ironed out before the season. Lining up in a huddle is the first thing that has to be taught every camp, because huddles can look different. Do you have the quarterback facing the defense and everyone kind of around them, or is it a true circle? Is it there's different things that happen there. You have to figure those things out.
Yeah.
Tony Brown on YouTube says, unless needed, do we expect Keaton Slovis to play in more than 4 games for redshirt purposes, and how does that affect Bryce Young's commitment?
I don't think you're going to see him unless there's some kind of emergency where he's going to play in more than 4 games. Maybe you see Fink a little bit. The Bryce Young thing, I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact on it. He seems pretty gung-ho for USC, but if he was going to leave and go to Alabama or something, I don't think it has a lot to do with Keaton Slovis.
If Slovis comes out and JT gets injured and Slovis starts 11 games and suddenly he's a Heisman candidate, then that would affect him.
But him coming into play like 4 games to not lose his red shirt,
garbage time, that doesn't change anything one way or the other. But if he takes over as a starter or something like that, then yes, that would definitely affect Bryce Young, because now he has to think, all right, am I beating out a guy that's 1 year above me or 2 years above me? Because you look at JT Daniels, you say, well, if he has a really good year and they build on it next year, maybe he leaves early.
Right.
And if that's the case, then I can come in and be a starter in year 2, whether I have to redshirt or not. That's kind of the dynamic you're thinking of as a recruit and as a 5-star quarterback recruit. Because only one quarterback can play. You can play multiple guys at every other position, but besides quarterback and punter, really.
So do you expect to see Keaton on Saturday?
I don't know. Do you think so?
I do. I think they'll be up by 21 late.
All right.
Interesting.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Because, if that's do you want to use him early or would you rather try to use him late?
And that's kind of been a big question with the whole redshirt rule, and it's something that I've watched a little bit of coaches to try to see. USC didn't really save guys or throw guys out there early. It just they progressed as the season went on, and once guys like Abdul Malik McClain had proved himself in practice, then he got some opportunities in games. Yeah. It wasn't really, hey, we got to use him early or we got to use him late. These are the blowouts we're going to have type of thing.
They did have a system, though, where they tracked productive plays from everyone who was a potential redshirt, and at that point they decided, okay, let's hold this guy back. Okay, he's contributing a certain amount. I think Clay said 25 to 30 plays, and that's when they decided whether or not they were a redshirt candidate.
Yeah, and there weren't a lot of those guys. There was Kanai Mauga is a guy that is in that case where he's really productive on special teams. We got to keep him in there because those are the guys you look at. Those are the ones that you're like, oh well, he's not going to play this year as a whatever position. But remember, special teams guys can get on and make their mark. Michael Pittman didn't play a ton as a receiver his freshman year, but he was on special teams. He blocked a punt, those type of things. And, then he got more and more in the rotation as a receiver. So.
Yeah. I'm going to say Slovis does not play on Saturday. But USC, I think they're going to cover the spread, but it'll be kind of close. Maybe they win by 17. So there's not really going to be a chance for him to play.
Okay. Christian on YouTube says, who do you guys think will start at corner/nickel? I'm curious to see if you guys all agree on the same guys.
We were asked this on the Peristyle podcast yesterday with, was it yesterday? Keely and Dan?
Yes, it was.
It goes by fast. I'm going to go Elijah Griffin and Chris Steele at corners, and then Chase Williams at nickel. That's
so you're
my
giving
cut.
the freshman the start?
Giving the freshman the start.
Interesting.
It's interesting because I'm not agreeing with that at all.
All right, good.
Oh.
I got Greg Johnson at nickelback.
I know.
I got I got ITS at one spot, cornerback, and the other one's kind of a toss-up. I think that's the one they're battling for. I think they trust ITS to not make big mistakes, and that's more important to Clancy, I think, than the playmaking ability of an Elijah Griffin, the turnover ability of Elijah Griffin, because he's able to make big plays, but also he could give up a big play because he's super aggressive. So I think Clancy wants more just consistency back there. So I think ITS is the guy that gets the start, and then we'll see between the other two.
Interesting.
So you're saying it's between Chris Steele and Elijah Griffin?
Yeah.
Okay.
My gut says OG, Greg, and Chris Steele. But then my mind is like, gets confused as will Chris Steele start because he's a true freshman, yada, yada. So, but I'm going to go with that just for.
Nice. So we all had a different answer.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh.
We'll find out tomorrow when they release the depth chart.
True.
Yeah,
Very true.
because they always trot out the exact same lineup.
Also
as the
a
depth chart.
good point. Well,
Like how Ruben Peters was always a starter and then never
people
was.
that are on the starting lineup that don't even play. There's stuff like that happens all the time.
some things are behind the veil of secrecy.
Yes, even the starting lineup.
In the same vein, Mamba on YouTube says, will Drake Jackson get the start?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm gonna say no, but he'll play a lot.
I think they'll start in a 4-down lineman set. I don't know. You've seen Fresno more than I have. Having covered them in the past, I know Tedford a little bit better. Do you think they're going to come out in some, 4-wide, 5-wide thing?
No, I think
force them into 2-down linemen.
It wasn't really like an air raidy kind of offense, but it was efficient. Like what that they valued with JT Daniels, the consistency. They were a move the chains. They weren't like a big take a lot of risk. Now Jorge Reyna is more of a gunslinger than Marcus McMarion was. So they might try to take some more chances and stuff. But I just feel like because he's a true freshman, they're going to want to play him, but they're going to give someone else, like it might be Hunter Eccles or something out there the first time. So
I think you just, whatever the alignment is what you're going to go with, and I think it'll be a 4-down lineman.
All right.
Quick question from Randy. He says, is Graham Harrell calling plays from the sideline or from the booth? From the booth. We've seen it in practice and as well as the fall showcase.
Yeah. He's up in the booth.
Rusty says, if capital if we go on a great run of wins, 1, how long will Clay stay around with such a capricious fan base? And 2, will people publicly recognize that T. Martin was an inadequate offensive coordinator?
What was the first part of that again? I'll give you the second part.
How long will Clay stay around with such a capricious fan base?
Oh.
Capricious?
I mean, the fans don't.
If USC goes on a run of wins.
A big if.
Yeah, that's performance based. That's not like what the fans think. The fans are not very happy.
Clay's going to stay around because he hasn't had offers to go anywhere else yet. It's not like even when USC won the Pac-12, they won the Rose Bowl. It's not like you heard, so and so is contacting Clay Helton.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. So you can't say he's going to go anywhere. He's not going to turn down. He's not going to be like, I just want to go sit on my couch instead of making $4 million a year.
The only way he's leaving is he's getting fired.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, it's not like Alabama or Clemson are going to try to hire him. And if Memphis tried to hire him, he wouldn't leave. So it's not like, there's no reason for him to go anywhere unless he's fired.
It's a USC job. There's very few jobs that are more prestigious than USC, if any.
Right. And then the T. Martin stuff, he was a first-time offensive coordinator. For calling plays and all that stuff. I'm not putting this on him. It wasn't like he came up with some playbook and that's what he was running. He was running the gumbo that was, this creation of Sark and Kiffin and the Helton brothers and Brian Ellis and it was just this kind of mishmash of everything. It wasn't like T. Martin laid out this playbook like, here's what we're going to run. That wasn't the way it went. So it was sort of like when Clay Helton became the offensive coordinator. Like he didn't come in as some guru from some other system and bring it in. It was just an internal deal. So I don't put the blame on T. Martin like some other people do. But
you could blame a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of
T. Martin is
it's
the
not
one
like,
to single out, but I don't think T. Martin is immune to all the criticism either.
Yes.
Fair.
We have a Facebook question from Chad who says, who are we likely to see play on Saturday that is also likely to redshirt this season?
If USC is actually up by 21, I think you'll see
Slovis,
see some guys in there that may not play a bunch of the season, and anybody that gets hurt in the second game or third game or fourth game, like Isaac Taylor Stewart last year. He was a guy that played early, but then he got injured and didn't come back, so that's why he was a redshirt. I think you might see I think a lot of it plays on how the game plays out, but if that's the case, you get the chance to get those young DBs in there. I think that'd be great for USC.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to trust Adonis Oti or Dorian Hewitt or any of those guys late in the season or anything. Maybe maybe one or two of them work their way up, but I think that those are all guys that the more game experience they can get, the better. But I think they're all likely to redshirt this season.
Yeah, I mean you could see Keenan Kristen.
Yeah.
I don't think he redshirts though.
You don't think he's going to redshirt?
I mean, they were kind of weird with Step. Like, I thought Step could have gotten reps when they redshirted him, but that was
What
last
about
year, right?
CV, Nomura? Do you think
Yeah,
potential?
like those type of guys, like Stanley, Taofu, the
Yeah.
guys that have a bunch of depth in front of them,
Meninoa,
but
Tufono,
they would like to
yeah.
get some,
Yeah.
get some playing time for it if possible. And if you're up, you can do that. Now, guys that are just getting in the mix, there might be a couple guys that are on special teams. Those are kind of the guys you're looking for. Like Stephen Nomura might be a guy that's on special teams, and he
Yeah.
doesn't redshirt because of that.
Yeah.
Those are the type of guys that often do that. Linebackers or, bigger DBs, you can see those guys, covering punts and doing different things to help out on special teams, and therefore they don't end up redshirting.
Yeah. Shotgun's really good at kind of breaking down the lineups and who's out there. So definitely watch for that on USCfootball.com. And
Yeah.
you can see, this guy I thought was going to redshirt. He's not really getting any rotation in the secondary, but he's on every punt coverage team and he's on every kickoff, whatever. Then okay, that guy's not going to redshirt.
We have a tweet from Matt Yeager. He says, Fanatics was selling home and road number 55 jerseys earlier this summer. Has no player emerged as worthy of the number for this season?
No, I don't think so, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like a Pallier could be worthy, but I don't think that's something
He hasn't emerged as worthy. So
Yeah.
the question then becomes, do you do like they've done in the past and give the 55 to someone when they arrive on campus, and that's a selling point to get it, the recruit there? A guy like Justin Flo, I would give him 55.
That's a very good
If
point.
you can
yeah.
get him on campus. He's the best linebacker I've ever seen. He's the best I've seen in high
So
school.
then you feel good. Like it's weird if you don't feel great about the player, you really offer that out. But someone like him,
Yeah.
which would be a huge get for USC, I think that's a perfect way to use it.
But is there anyone that has earned that right yet? No. Now, is Pallier and Itiote, is he a guy that could? Definitely. And he's the guy that's probably the closest, and he's the guy that wants to fulfill that legacy. That's something I talked about it with him in high school, is like especially the Polynesian culture there with Junior Seau. He looks at that number as being, high and above any other number. So if he got the opportunity, he would jump at it.
I kind of like just giving it when they get there as opposed to like switching numbers. Like
I don't know. Do you not like the tradition at LSU? The number, whatever Matty Mock's number was, I think it was him.
Oh, and they gave.
But they give the number each year. It's like a random number. It's like 17 or something, and it looks weird on people. But it's passed down every year to like the toughest guy on the team.
Okay.
And it's an earned number.
Yeah.
But
that's not USC's tradition. USC's
not.
tradition
Yeah.
has been, it's usually you have it. Now, sometimes you give it to like a Marcus Steele and, or a Lamar Dawson, and maybe it's not like they don't have the greatest career in the world, but I kind of just rather have someone come in as a freshman and get it. And a guy like Justin Flo,
Yeah.
if you can get him, I'd feel pretty good about that.
It is 12:48, so I'm going to take us into rapid fire.
Yes.
So rapid fire answers, Shotgun. Brandon says, what do you make of Coach P saying that he doesn't like to rotate the DBs, but Greg Burns says he wants to play around 6? Who makes that decision?
Clancy.
eventually Clancy. But he said he likes for guys to have a lather if they're going to be out there covering a guy or whatever. So maybe that lather can come on special teams. I don't know.
Yeah, that was a little. He just offered that up yesterday. It wasn't like we were pressing him on, hey, you're going to rotate more? But
Yeah.
that was just what he said.
What he said was there was more likely to be rotation in the front 7 than the back 5.
Larry Legend says, if the defense struggles, does the blame go to Clancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a defensive coordinator. Who are you going to blame?
If the offense struggles, they're going to blame Graham Harrell.
Yeah. Or if anything, but Clay
The
Helton
team struggles.
Clay Helton will get blamed too, but those guys, the coordinators are going to take blame.
Yep.
If the defense throws a shutout and you win 3-0, you're still blaming Graham Harrell.
Yeah.
Brian says, what's the running back depth look like for Fresno State?
We kind of touched on this. I think all 3 of those front guys are going
Yeah.
to play, and then Keaton Kristen maybe. I think Stephen Carr and Vi will get the majority. Any short yardage stuff will be Marquis Step.
I think they were talking about Fresno State's running back depth.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. So they'll probably usually you had 4 guys. I forget the guy's name, but he's the son of a Fresno State legend. But and Michael Pittman is too.
That's what I was about to say. Michael Pittman?
No, it's a different one. I forget there's 2 running backs I think they feel pretty good about, but they wanted to come into the game with 4, but they had some injuries. But they still they had their most productive running back from last year coming back, so you should
And
be
their
all
number
right.
3 running back from last year, which had tried to play linebacker, and they switched him back to
Yeah, so they'll be okay, but not as they've definitely lost some players from last year during the camp, but it's not like the cupboard's bare.
Joseph wants us to look ahead to the future. He says, what will USC's record look like by week 6?
That's the biggest question of all
Yeah.
the whole offseason. Like, we're actually talking about football. I mean, I think it's pretty. I'll go 3-3.
I'll go 4-2.
Ooh.
I'll be optimistic.
That's more optimistic.
I'm gonna say 3-3 because it's safe. Haha.
Playing it safe as always.
Hey, I mean, Shotgun, any questions while I'm still looking through all these?
Yeah, where's USC's trap game this year? Jesse wanted to know.
Oh,
I had some write in like they don't like the idea of a trap game. I don't think the first 6 games.
I don't think coaches like the idea of a trap game either, but
Well,
it
the
happens still.
concept they were saying, like the concept doesn't make sense. I'm like, well, it kind of does. Like you know, whatever you're doing in life, if there's like 5 things and one of them's really important and one of them's not as important, you might not put as much attention into the one that's not as important. Like whatever you're doing, taking tests or whatever. So I feel like it can't happen in the early part of the schedule because there's no potential for trap. I mean, you could say at BYU's sort of trappy, but you're gonna have everybody. You have 100% attention, I think, on the first 6 games. I think it's gonna have to come in the latter half, maybe like ASU or something like that.
Probably at ASU because you're coming off the Oregon game.
Yeah.
Facing the #1 quarterback and all, and it depends on where Arizona State and Cal are towards the end of the season. I think both of those teams could be, the potential games. Like, okay, well, they're not playing great this season. USC should beat them. And then you're like, wait, kind of like Cal last year. Like, wait, how does this offense not score any points?
Yeah. I mean, there's a Friday night game at Colorado, and, that's not a team that you lost to last year. So, like, at ASU, there's revenge. At Cal, or is it's at Cal too, right?
Yeah.
There's both revenge kind of factor games and stuff.
If the Colorado game was after Notre Dame, I would say that is a trap game for sure. I think, but the thing is, they play Arizona after it, and we just saw Arizona lose to Hawaii. So
Right.
true.
But Colorado is before Oregon, so maybe you overlook that.
See, but is that mindset why it's a trap game? They're like, they lost to Hawaii. They're not that good. Trap
Yeah,
game.
good point.
I don't know.
All right.
In the same vein, One Blue Love 23 says, "What is the single most important game on the schedule?" He says, or she, I say Utah.
Utah.
Yeah, determines the Pac-12 South.
Okay, but it depends on what you're going for. If you want USC to return to national prominence, yada yada, maybe UW, maybe Notre Dame. But if your goal is get back to the Pac-12 championship, I would say Utah.
Well, you're not making it to national prominence if you're not winning the Pac-12 South.
But that's assuming that you can handle Utah.
Yeah.
They haven't proven they can handle Utah
Just saying.
ever.
Given
I
the-
think you got to
Every
look
game
at
they played, they've won against Utah has been a close game.
the important step is you got to win the South to get to wherever you want to go, and you have to beat Utah to do that, in my opinion.
Jose says, "Will UW expose Graham Harrell's offense as they have with Mike Leach's?"
It's a very good question because Mike Leach's offense have not looked as good. Graham Harrell's aren't the same. It's a little different skill, but I mean they seem to have, was it the defensive coordinator Lake up there at now they lose I think 8 or 9 starters off that defense for Washington, but man, they've been able to replace high-level draft picks year after year and come back with just as strong of a defense. Ben, for Curvin and all those guys, like really productive guys are losing off that defense. But I feel like they're going to be able to replace them with kind of some younger athletic guys. So that's going to probably be the toughest test for USC. The USC offense would be my guess.
Yeah, and the defensive front at Notre Dame has been really good too. The defensive front there and Utah, I think those are really big question marks for that offensive line too. So I think those will be real big challenges. But the overarching defense that Washington has produced year in and year out under Peterson has been really good.
Yeah.
So
Notre Dame's defense might be better, but Washington's proved they can shut down the air raid a lot. So I think that's why that's really the biggest factor.
So there was there's been a couple questions about Larry Scott's statement. So I just had to look it up. Apparently he made a statement today. Saying earlier today in Portland that we don't hire the coaches, we don't recruit the athletes, we don't coach them, but sometimes we get blamed for the losses, and people want us to react to that comment.
Yeah, I mean Larry Scott's just not good at his job. So you've put the whole conference in poor positions year after year. You have scheduled Washington and Stanford games on a Friday night to get preempted by truck racing, and have one team come off a bye and play at home, and the other team come off a road game and a short week, and you've put teams in bad positions and helped them achieve extra losses that they didn't necessarily get. So that is on you, Larry Scott.
And you make $5 million.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to get blamed for the losses when all your teams are constantly going this way besides the
Yeah.
Olympic sports.
You pick the 9-game schedule. You want to have
Great point.
There's a lot of factors that you could make this team more competitive. And when Dan asked you it from my question a couple years ago, if you'd rather have a playoff team or parity, you said parity. Now you've backed off on that this year, saying you wish you wouldn't have said it. You want both, but you've made decisions that were geared towards parity and not towards excellence. The SEC, they want Alabama to be awesome. They want LSU to be awesome. And if that is at the expense of Vanderbilt, then they're fine with it. And you haven't done that in the Pac-12. And without going to the playoff the last 3 years, this is the kind of stuff you're going to see.
Does that classify as a Ryan rant?
Little rant.
Not sure about that. We have a Facebook question from Dennis and from a ton of people on YouTube wondering about injury updates. So, a question: is Max Williams healthy? Max Williams hasn't practiced this week from what we've seen. If you don't know, new media rules where we're only able to see the first 20 minutes of practice, so we can't make a full judgment about that. We got a lot of questions about Andrew Voorhees too. I know Dan and I talked about him on Incident Analysis. We have seen from what we've been able to see and hear that he's been limited. We did hear that he has a minor tweak, but should be good for Saturday. That's what we're hearing at this point. But that is something that we've seen. He hasn't been on the first or second team when they do their walkthroughs while we're present. It's been Jalen McKenzie at right guard and then Drew Richmond at right tackle. So that's something to look out for. But as far as injuries go, on the whole, they're generally healthy.
Yeah.
Nothing too big going into the season.
Yeah, the main injury was Jordan Iasefa and Solomon Tuli-Alapupu. Just two guys in that middle linebacker spot. And Elijah Winston actually got moved over there, and he has some turf toe issues. So a little bit.
He was still in a boot yesterday. So.
Yeah, a little bit thin in the inside linebacker, but they moved a bunch of guys there, so there's still a bunch of bodies there, and they still have their two starters, John Houston and Palia Naitiote.
We have Uncle Meb on Periscope. Is JT Daniels ready to step up? Last year, he often looked overwhelmed, especially when trailing in games. What do you guys think?
I think he's going to be better. I mean, anybody that gets 11 games experience will progress and, will not be affected as much by the things that affected them previously. The whole saying, the game slows down, and I think it will for him as well.
Yeah, he's in a much better scheme. He will perform better.
We have a Facebook question from Jeff who says, who on the team do you think could be a first-team All-American?
Ooh. Good question.
Michael Pittman Jr.
Or Amon-Ra St. Brown, potentially.
Well,
they any of the receivers. Yeah, that's tough. There's so many good receivers. That might be hard to do.
Palia Naitiote. Because he hits so hard, he has the ability to create turnovers, and those are the things that catch people's eyes when you're looking for All-American candidates.
Or Talanoa Hufanga, I think at safety has that potential.
Drake Jackson eventually.
Yeah, the offensive line is tough because the whole offensive line would probably have to play well. It couldn't just be him having a great year.
I said Drake Jackson.
Oh, I'm sorry, Austin Jackson. Drake Jackson. Yeah, that
eventually. I don't know about this year, but eventually.
In the same vein, Andrew says, can anybody on USC get some Heisman love by midseason? Seems like no one is even being considered on the West Coast. Could that person steal the Heisman by getting all the West
There is
votes?
somebody being considered on the West Coast, a guy named Justin Herbert. So if they play well early in the season, when they played Washington last year, he was getting some Heisman buzz then in the fourth or fifth week. I think he has a chance to, if they're playing well down the stretch, he'll be a guy in there. On USC's side, if you go 5-7, you're not winning any Heisman. It's the player with the best stats on one of the top 3 or 4 teams. That's usually what the Heisman has been for 20 years now. Or so.
You got to have some buzz. Carson Palmer won it without really any buzz going in, but he had, it was his 5th year, and there was people know who he was. But he wasn't even on the cover of the media guide. And that was a long time ago. But you're talking about, you need that, Stephen Carr would have to have, a really good year, and then
you have to have exciting plays.
Yeah.
To create that buzz. But you don't have to have preseason buzz. Johnny Manziel didn't have any. Jameis Winston, those guys were redshirt freshmen, so I don't think they had that type of buzz.
We have reached the top of the hour. We have a Facebook question from our buddy Michael Castillo. He says, over under 1.5 emergency podcast this season.
I heard that on his show, too.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over. There's the early part of the schedule is just so tough. I'm going to go over 1.5.
Does that include reverse emergency podcast or just sole emergency podcast? Because we've had a reverse emergency podcast.
I'm going to count it all. But yeah, if USC starts off 5-0 going into the bye week, that would be a reverse emergency podcast. Holy crap, what has happened here? So,
what if there are firings in season? Does that count as an emergency podcast?
That's how they originated.
The definition.
Not if it's an athletic director. They could be 5-0 and still the athletic director could be fired.
Yeah, I don't know if that would if Litzwan gets fired, I don't think that's going to warrant an emergency podcast. But if USC goes to BYU and gets clocked, that's an emergency podcast. USC loses to Fresno State. That's an emergency podcast. USC gets smoked by Utah at home. I think that would be an emergency podcast.
Oh, Lucy.
Like losing on the road to like Washington and Notre Dame, I don't think would be an emergency podcast.
Unless it's a blowout like it was at Texas.
Yeah, like the Alabama game, that was an emergency podcast because it was 55-6 or whatever. So.
How many emergency podcasts did we do last year?
It's a good question.
Texas, I know, was one.
We did one at Utah, right, with Chris?
I think we did.
Yeah. Chris.
Yeah, so
nods,
that's
yes.
2 just from last year, at least. Yeah, I mean, I'll get a little frisky and do an emergency podcast just for fun, so I'll go over.
Frisky. Interesting.
All right, last rapid fire. Out of all the running backs, who's the best catcher? That would be Stephen Carr. Who has more uniform
Really?
combinations?
I feel like Vi has come a long way as the best catcher.
But he's not as good as Carr.
It's not as Carr.
Okay.
Carr can play receiver if you wanted to.
Jeez.
Wow.
Who has more uniform combinations? Oregon with their awful day glow or Shotgun with his hats and dress shirts?
I'll go with the latter.
Oh, I don't know. Oregon's got a lot.
Combos?
Because they have combinations. They do have like they have
okay.
a
You
lot.
have like 90 million hats. That's a lot of combos,
Only
right?
180. Okay.
So he has 180 hats, but there actually might be more Oregon combinations. You don't, I mean, obviously you don't see them, all the ones, but there's the potential of like, I think it's like Garanimals. Like you could, these shorts goes with this jersey and stuff
Mason,
like that.
when has the air raid offense had this much talent? I would say if you look at some of those Oklahoma teams that have been in the playoff.
2 Heismans in a row.
Yeah. And guys like Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, who USC tried to recruit but couldn't get.
Yeah.
After what game will we know for certain the direction this team is headed?
That's tough. I
Yeah.
might go
6 is for sure.
Yeah,
maybe
that's-
3.
I think 3 is safe because it's
So
like
after BYU.
I think after BYU because
Really?
going into Utah, I think you have a pretty good idea.
I
But
think
at
after
Stanford,
Utah.
you can't like you always say, "Oh, we'll know after Stanford," but you don't. Like they
It's
always
false.
look
No,
different.
yeah.
It's a false one.
Yeah,
False
that's
positive.
always a false positive. And Fresno State's going to be really tough. So earliest would be BYU for me.
Do you expect Dominic Davis to see more playing time on offense now that he switched sides? I think his speed could be huge.
Yes.
Yes, because he didn't play a single snap on defense, so therefore you couldn't say if he plays at all, then he has accomplished
That was just bizarre. Like I don't know why that move wasn't made.
sooner. Yeah.
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 I think they
Who
had to
knows?
wait to see on the cornerbacks and see if someone was going to be there. But,
Yeah.
Andrew asked the last one. What is your thoughts on the one key to winning the Pac-12?
Dun, dun, dun.
The one key,
Win the games.
I think. What's that?
O-line.
O-line.
The eye roll.
I think it goes along with the O-line, just showing that you're the toughest team out there. Like if you go out and play tough, then I think you'll win the Pac-12. If you go out and get pushed around by teams that really shouldn't be pushing you around, you're not going to win. So and that probably is if the offensive line plays well, they're going to be tough. So that's probably the same thing.
Someone asked, does USC go to a bowl game this season, and which one?
Yes.
Yes, and I hate a lot of college football is amazing. Few things I hate. I hate watch lists. They're awful. Like just 1,000 people.
Big Rivers.
Marquise Lee wasn't on the freaking Biletnikoff watch list, and he won the award.
He wasn't on the
and there was
semifinal list.
like
He still
500
won.
people on it, and then he wasn't on it. And like that's the guy that won. So watch lists to me are just worthless. Like I ignore every press release, and bowl predictions are the worst because. First of all, you try to do it before the season even started. People are trying to do it like at the end of the regular season, and it's changing every hour. And someone loses a game, and it moves all around. So it's like, to me, it doesn't make sense to try to predict every bowl. So I have no idea what bowl they're going to go to, but I would say they go to one.
Ben Griffiths was on the watch list earlier today. It's for the punter, right?
Yeah,
Rick
and that's the only one I actually thought about this. I was like, this is one that I actually would retweet. But the other ones, it's like, who really knows?
Yeah, there's something there where they realize that this guy's never played it down, but he's on the watch list. So yeah,
Preseason hype.
but I don't like any of those things.
Alrighty, I think that's going to wrap it for the show. Before we leave,
Last thing, Giovanni pointed out is number 18 at LSU. Appreciate that, Giovanni.
Thanks, Ivani.
before we leave, it's time for predictions on Saturday. Dun,
Oh.
dun, dun, dun. What are y'all expecting? Fresno State, USC season opener. Let's hear it.
I'm going to go USC 38-24. I think they're going to cover the spread just barely.
Barely.
Might not be like the prettiest, but the offense should be more efficient. Fresno State I think is going to be better after the first couple of games. They have Minnesota coming into the Central Valley for the second game, so that'll be interesting.
Interesting.
But yeah, I think USC is going to win by 14. Probably the fans aren't going to feel amazing about it, but they probably should.
I got a 21-point win for USC.
You have a score? or anything?
AKA, it always happens. We're back to this, guys.
I don't know, 35 to minus 21, 14.
Oh, that was going to be mine. I was going to say 35 to like 14 or 17.
Yeah.
So there you have it, guys.
Nice.
Alrighty.
We had one quick one.
Right.
Chris Chavez is like IPM or Chase. People were asking about that stuff. Like we already said that earlier. Go back and watch, but they're not really competing. Isaiah Polamalu and Talanoa Funga should start. We were talking about the corners and it could be Chase or Greg Johnson
At the nickelback
Yes.
spot, not
Yes.
Isaiah
I
Polamalu.
think IPM's going to have a big year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clancy talked about him in Talanoa yesterday, and they saying rave a lot of good things. So.
Yep, for sure. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up. We'll be back on Sunday at 7 for our reactions, our recap, our analysis of USC's game on Saturday. So make sure you stay tuned for that Sunday at 7, right, Ryan?
Post game, 7 p.m. We might have to have emergency tunnel visions. That would be, that would be good. No, we have scheduled ones, but
Yes.
Sunday night we'll be in this studio.
Have we done an emergency television?
I don't think so.
Oh, well,
But we might have to.
we might.
We already do it on
We did.
Sunday.
We did after Clay was brought back again. We did have one.
Oh, we had an emergency
Yes,
one. All
we
right.
did.
But make sure you come back. That's going to be wild. Sunday night we get a lot of people live. We had a lot
of
today.
people today.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
I'm very
Thanks to
impressed that
everyone
we had
who
this many
tuned in.
people at noon on a Thursday. But
Yeah.
Sunday night should be a lot of fun.
Yes.
We want 1,000 phone calls. We just want to talk to people for 3 hours Sunday night.
Wow, Ryan.
No, we want to just talk. It's going to be awesome.
Sure, we're excited. Can you tell? But thanks for watching Tunnel Vision. We'll be back, like we said, on Sunday at 7 p.m. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching live. Thanks for watching if you're watching the replay. We'll see you guys then. That's Shotgun. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all later. Bye.